What's up YouTube, Savage Hero Brian here, and welcome to the third episode of Know Your Specs. So basically, we look and talk about the specs of consoles, handhelds, phones, tablets, laptops, and PCs. So today, we're going to look at the specs of the new 3DS XL. So for the first specs we're going to look at is the CPU. The new 3DS CPU is a 804 MHz dual-core ARM11 MP core. The CPU is surprisingly better than its competitor, which was the PS Vita, which had an ARM Cortex-A9 processor, which can reach up to an average of 333 MHz and can reach up to even 444 MHz without Wi-Fi. So the 3DS has a much faster CPU clock speed, as you can see here, which is due to the fact that the PS Vita played games in higher resolutions, and to make the PS Vita have a good battery life, it needed to have the CPU underclocked. Now let's look at the new 3DS's CPU. I know this is kind of a blurry image, but you should sort of get an image on what the CPU looks like. For the GPU side of things, as a DMP Pica processor clocked at 260 MHz. Compared to the PS Vita, the new 3DS is weak on the GPU side of things, even though the new 3DS came out after the PS Vita. Anyways, if you're curious to know the GPU of the PS Vita, here it is. It has a PowerVR SGX543 MP4 quad-core clocked at 400 MHz, which is over 100 MHz faster than the new 3DS. Also, I surprisingly couldn't find an image for the GPU of the new 3DS, so sadly if you wanted to see it, you can't. Now the new 3DS has 256 megabytes of RAM and 4 gigabytes of storage. It's not really surprising only seeing this amount of storage on the 3DS because handheld games usually are less than 1 gigabyte big. They're usually around 100 to 400 megabytes. They usually take up to 100 to 400 megabytes for like 3DS games. Now to look at the 3DS resolution. The resolution is 240p, which is shockingly low because it was released after phones that came out in 1080p. This isn't even close to HD at all. It's not even SD resolution, which is around like 576p, yet somehow people accept the 3DS's resolution, despite having everything else these days in HD or 4K, which is freaking insane. Despite being 240p resolution, the new 3DS is surprisingly selling well, but its competitor, the PS Vita, had a resolution of 544p resolution, which is very close to standard definition resolution. So it has more than double the resolution of the new 3DS, but yet it's sold poorly because of lack of third-party and sort of first-party support. So now let's look at the camera resolutions. So if you take a picture or video in 2D, it will be in 480p. Sadly, you wouldn't really see that unless you printed the picture out or looked at the picture on your computer, since the new 3DS screen is 240p. Then if you make a picture or video with the 3D camera option, it will only be in 240p. Also, in my opinion, I don't really think the 3D camera is that good anyways. There's literally no point in doing it if you can get pictures and videos on the 3DS's 2D camera, and it isn't as grainy as a 3D camera anyways. Either way, on to the next thing we're going to look at. So for the touchscreen of the 3DS, it uses a resistive touchscreen. Resistive touchscreens are versatile, as they can be operated with a finger, a fingernail, a stylus, or any other object. So basically, what that means is that for resistive touchscreens, you can use a bunch of things to touch the touchscreen with, but you can't make multiple inputs at the same time with a touchscreen like this. This type of touchscreen is also not commonly used anymore. Phones and tablets use a different type of touchscreen called a capacitive touchscreen. Even the Nintendo Switch uses a capacitive touchscreen. Using a touchscreen like that means this makes it more responsive than a resistive screen when it comes to gestures such as swiping and pinching. Capacitive touchscreens can only be touched with a finger and will not respond to touches with a regular stylus, gloves, or most other objects. The new 3DS uses a resistive touchscreen even though it's not as good as a capacitive touchscreen because it's a pure gaming handheld basically. Every game uses the touchscreen in simplistic ways for stuff like drawing, and the touchscreen isn't used like it is with the phone, so it wouldn't need a capacitive touchscreen. But the Nintendo Switch uses a capacitive touchscreen because when you use a touchscreen, you use it similar to how you would use a touchscreen for a phone. Also, touchscreens are not used in every game on Nintendo Switch, and when it is an option, you can play it on your TV and wait, and you don't have to use a touchscreen. But when you play a mobile port, which I hope you never do, the touchscreen on Nintendo Switch makes it feel like you were playing a mobile game on your phone. So now on to talking about the battery life of the new 3DS, which is a lithium-ion battery that can last 3 to 5 hours playing 3DS games and last 5 to 8 hours playing DS games. The reason for this is because the DS was a weaker handheld than the 3DS. That means that the games on the DS use less resources because the DS couldn't handle so much that the 3DS could handle. So it would be much easier for the new 3DS, which is like 4 times more powerful than the DS, to run DS games, allowing it to last longer because it doesn't use that many resources compared to 3DS games. The final thing now that I'm going to talk about is the main gimmick of the new 3DS, which is, of course, the 3D. The thing that nobody really uses anymore and really shouldn't been advertised with the 3DS. They should have just made like an HDS or something. Because the last model that they made for a 3DS was a new 2DS XL. It's like, come on, where exactly is my HDS? Even though the Switch is like an HDS except with one screen and as a hybrid console. So for the new 3DS, the top screen of the new Nintendo 3DS utilizes a filter called a parallax barrier. One of the images necessary for seeing 3D is projected to the right and the other image to the left. The image occupy alternating vertical columns of pixels and are filtered through the parallax barrier, which then creates the illusion of 3D. So those are all the specs of the new 3DS. I will be making another Know Your Specs episode tomorrow, so go look forward for that, and please like and subscribe for more content. And without the way, 7 Hero Brian out.